Hello everyone and welcome back to Practical Inclusion. I'm rugged up. It is still freezing and cold down here on the land of the Wadawurrung people, which are the traditional owners of the land on which I broadcast to you from today. And I'd like to start by paying my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who happen to be watching us live today or on the replay, which as usual is through Facebook, LinkedIn or YouTube. Peace, before we get into who you are and why you're here, whose lands are you coming in from today?
I'm in beautiful North Queensland, in the lands of the Mamu people.
Oh wow, we haven't had anybody yet from North Queensland, so that's nice to hear the name of some other traditional owners. For those who are listening in, as always, you can put some questions or comments in the chat. I've been really interested in the conversations that have happened through there, either if you're watching live or on the replay. So please, I encourage you to do that. Today's guest is, today's topic is a little bit different to the stuff that I usually tackle on this show. It still definitely has a strong link to inclusion and diversity, but it's a little bit outside the typical workplace inclusion topics that we discuss. And I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to Peace about the work that she's been doing. For those of you who don't know Peace, she is the co-founder of Oz Mumpreneur, and I am awful at pronouncing entrepreneur, so I'm going to lay that out from the start, but also the Women's Business School. I think I've got that right. And I'd love to hear, Peace, if you could, as I usually get guests to do on this show, introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about that and what you do, but also how and why did you get here?
Sure. So we've been running Oz Mumpreneur since 2009. It began because my sister and I both had young children, and we found that going back to the traditional workplace wasn't really working. It was okay with my first son. I went back part-time, but then when my second baby came along, it just became so much more difficult juggling childcare, taking one kid to school and all of that. So I realized that if I wanted to have that family time and flexibility and freedom to do what I wanted and, have time the way that I wanted, I needed to create an online business to be able to do that. And my sister was at the same stage as well. And so we tried setting up a few different online businesses, doing all kinds of things. I went into the fashion design. I had no experience in the industry, but I thought I'd give fashion a go. That didn't end well. Well, it just ended, I guess, before we even got off the ground. My sister did stroller design. We tried all sorts of things. And ultimately it didn't work. We were based in a tiny little town called Innisfail in far north Queensland. It has a population of about 6,000 people. So it's a very small place. We're really far away from Brisbane or any of the capital cities. And it was really isolating. But what we found was that there were lots of other women like us who had young children but big dreams and were wanting to start online businesses as well. And so Oz Mumpreneur was created as an online community to bring women together, to connect and to talk about business and the challenges that they were facing with getting their business off the ground, and to really solve the problem of isolation and feeling like you're on your own in business, because business is tough. It's hard, and there are challenges and obstacles all the time. And in those early days, if you don't have that support, you're much more likely to close that business and it to fail. So that's where Oz Mumpreneur started from. And we've been running the Oz Mumpreneur Awards for 12 years now. And we've uncovered all kinds of incredible business owners and entrepreneurs and women doing amazing things, whilst also, juggling kids and raising family and all of that. Yeah. And then in 2016, we recognised a real need for dedicated business education for women, because what women were telling us was that it was difficult to get to in-person business courses. And even the online alternatives like the Diploma of Business require 20 hours a week of study. And I don't know about you, but I don't know too many people who are raising young children and running a business who have an extra 20 hours a week. So we created a program which was going to be time efficient and flexible, that had gave access to resources like recordings of videos and transcripts and live calls as well, and a Facebook group for support, and also connected them, because connection was a big thing as well. So connected them to the peers in the program, but also connected them to a range of mentors, teachers, and also guest experts who come along each month and do a Q&A session with the students. So yeah, that's who we are. That's what we do. I just love it. I really get excited when I see someone who comes along and they've got this idea and they want to get it off the ground, and really working with them, and over 12 months seeing that progression and that growth from this thing that was just becoming a real and tangible thing that's out there in the world making an impact is pretty cool.
That's awesome. And it's right off the bat, you've identified a systemic barrier to women's participation in creating businesses, in startups, and that was around that study barrier first up. It's fascinating the way that has come out so quickly. I didn't expect that. And so you've created this, you've addressed that kind of barrier in a way, that systemic barrier.
Absolutely. I mean, I've done research on it as well. And when I was reading about women's participation in MBA programs, the barriers to access are all there. It's all documented. They know that that's happening, that women aren't participating at the same rate as men, and women are not completing the courses at the same rate as men because of these barriers of the extra responsibilities of children and family. But however, the difference is that even though they know that, they've done all the research, they just try and throw money at the problem. Instead of creating a new program which is tailored to women or more flexible or anything like that, they just say, oh, well, we'll just give free scholarships to women so that they can do it. But they're not listening, because the problem's not the money. It's not about the price of the MBA. It's the other things. So, we're doing things.
And isn't that a clear lesson to everybody working in the diversity and inclusion space, that there's too much action that's being done that's not based on the actual problem? The actual problem itself hasn't been identified or is not being looked at properly.
Yeah, it's about listening. You've got to listen to the market. And I feel like that program has evolved and changed over the years. I mean, we launched in 2016 and we've tweaked it and brought in mentors and done different things over the time, because we've been constantly listening to feedback and listening to what our market wants and learning and trying things. And I think that that's something that, more traditional education could learn from.
And do you think, this is going to be an interesting question, do you think that men could benefit as much from the structure of the program that you're delivering as women and as people from other genders as well?
Absolutely, yes.
So if we just kind of reimagine the way we present these training options.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. There's a question that has come through the chat from Florence, and they've asked, what is a learning you had working with your sister family member?
Thanks for the question, Florence. And Florence is actually part of the Women's Business School this year. She's one of our students, so it's wonderful to see you here. I guess something that I've learned from working with my sister is that it's okay to be flexible, that it's okay to create the kind of business model that you want to create that works for you. You don't have to follow the rules that other people follow. So, an example of that is the 9 to 5. That seems to be a rule that traditional business follows. But we've just gone, no, we're not working 9 to 5. We're going to work school hours. We're taking school holidays off. If the kids have got sports day like they did last Friday, we're going to go to sports day. So we create our own rules. And we've been so fortunate, I think, because we're sisters and we're working together, we've been able to create a real understanding with each other. So, for example, I had my daughter in 2013 and I took maternity leave, and it was just an understanding. She just said, sure, you take whatever time that you want and I'll just keep things running. And then she had a baby the next year in 2014 and took time off. And I was like, yeah, I'll just jump in and keep things going. It was never this, oh, well, you've done 40 hours this week. That means I've got to do 40 hours next week. It's just this understanding that, if you need time off, go for it. If that means a whole year, it's totally cool. We'll just keep things going and we'll keep talking. But if you're not able to show up and do the work, it's okay, because I know that we'll make it up later. And there's been a number of times where she went to Europe for 3 months 1 year, and then I went sailing for 3 months, where we've been able to just jump out and jump in and have that real, true flexibility with the way we live our life and run our business and keep everything going.
Sounds so ideal. And I guess maybe that's a good point to start talking about what it is like running a business and the advantages perhaps of being a business owner as opposed to working in the corporate world, because certainly I came from the corporate world, the 9 to 5, although I had access to flexible working, and then jumped out to start my own business. And there's a lot of people who give you a lot of advice at that time when you're thinking about leaving, and some of the, there's a lot of tendency to really provide heightened ideas of the risk that you're taking, and that you're losing all your security, and that you're going to be working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day type thing. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit? What do you see amongst the people who come through your programs in terms of what types of life they're leading, and whether those risks are real or a little bit maybe inflated?
I think in terms of risk, even if you are in a safe job, you can be made redundant from a job. Anyone can, that's the reality. There's no this idea of staying in a job and being loyal and it being secure. They can wake up the next day and go, well, actually, we need to cut spots and yours is one of them, so you're out. So, but at the same time, business isn't for everyone, and it is risky. Not every business is going to succeed. It took us a number of years before we were able to pay ourselves. So we were kind of just working for free, building this business up and believing that it could be possible. But I really do love the flexibility and the lifestyle that we've been able to create. And that's something that I'm really passionate about in giving those kind of skills and that philosophy to the women who go through our programs. And a number of our teachers do talk about that, the importance of balance and, and having time where you can separate work and life and have time for both of those things, but also time for self-care, because burnout is a huge problem, particularly for women with young kids who are running businesses and trying to get them off the ground. And I'm sure you're aware of, the bro culture, the hustle, that kind of idea that as an entrepreneur, you're working 24/7. And I do see that come through. We see women who are hospitalised for burnout because they've been trying to maintain that, working day and night. But it doesn't have to be that way. And, I've very much, in the early days, I did face burnout, but I was like, I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. And also, I want to be a role model for other women. I want to show other people that it's possible to have a business and raise your family and be happy and fulfilled in who you are yourself. And to do that, you really do have to invest in your own self-care and really looking after yourself.
Yeah, it's a really good and important message, and probably something that I'm grappling with right now, because in the early stages of the business, and certainly when things do start to move, you find yourself, because you enjoy the work, because you chose to do this work, you love it so much. And I find myself, trawling through data at night time and go, no, hang on, this is too much. You have to meter this in some way.
Yeah, well, I think of myself as a recovering workaholic. I could work 24/7. Like if I had the opportunity to, I would, because I love I love it. I just love working with these women and creating programs and all of the things that I do. But it's not sustainable, and I know that. And so, I had to put in boundaries in place and say, that's it. The laptop turns off at 3 and I pack it up. That's it. I'm done. And I tomorrow.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, a lot to learn and to keep thinking about it and what's right for you and what works. Can we talk a little bit about we talked about the barriers to studying business, but what about the barriers for women and for non-binary people actually starting businesses? What do you see are the common barriers?
I think access to finance is a huge one, because it does cost money to start a business, and depending on the kind of business that you want to start, that can be a significant amount. But even if you're starting something that's not going to cost a lot to get off the ground, the reality is you're probably not going to be making money for a while. It's probably going to be at least 12 months before you're actually starting to see that cash flow happening regularly. So the finances is a real barrier, and the stats around that, if we look at VC funding and things like that, it's, women get 2.7% of the funding, and the other 97.3% goes to men. It's crazy. And then if we're talking about diversity and inclusion, those numbers go down when you start looking at women of colour and non-binary and all of these other areas. So it's a real problem, and that's one of the biggest barriers. But what I am encouraged by is the number of alternatives that we're seeing pop up just in the last few years. So in 2016, SheEO launched, and we've never seen anything like that before. And that's where women were getting together, and the activators would each put in $1,000, and then people would apply, the ventures would apply, and then, they'd have access to funding through SheEO. And that's a loan. So they had access to a low interest loan, they paid that money back, and then that money was then able to go to other founders the following year. So that's one of them. Another thing that's come up just in the last 2 years is equity crowdfunding, and I'm really excited about that. That's where everyone can be investors, and it's crowdfunding, but you're actually getting shares and you're investing in the company. And a close friend of mine, Monica Meldrum, did a raise recently, and she raised $1.2 million. Shannon Gilliland from Pronto Bottle, she did a raise. I can't remember the amount that she got, but I'm seeing lots and lots of women who are using equity crowdfunding as an alternative to VC funding and being really successful with it. So I'm really excited to get behind that. And I'm now a micro angel investor myself, which is exciting as well. We're seeing more women becoming investors and investing in other women's businesses. So yeah, there are barriers to finances, but I'm excited about what the future holds to solve this.
Yeah, fantastic. I think I'll have to look up some of those options.
Yeah, it's really cool.
To put in some honesty there, just the sound of that kind of money, though, being invested in my business is terrifying. How do you get people to step over that leap, I guess, and really, because that's, you can back yourself with your own money, but when you're asking other people to back you, that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Well, I think, those feelings of am I enough? Is my business good enough for other people to invest in? Am I going to be able to show the return? Like, a lot of that is it's all in here, isn't it? It's wrapped up in our self-worth. And so I think entrepreneurship is such an incredible vehicle for personal discovery and personal growth. And, we learn so much about ourselves, and we have to develop that confidence. I don't think that you can survive as an entrepreneur if you're not able to put yourself out there and go, I'm going to do this, and I believe in myself, and I need all of you to believe in me as well. And so, yeah, it is. It's a journey.
Yeah, such a good message and reminder, and it definitely is. I think I've learnt more in a year than I did probably in my former roles. And that's personal learning. Wow, so fascinating. So what then, based on some of those, would be your message? You're talking to women and people of all genders, probably, many who are sitting within their corporate roles at the moment, maybe post-COVID, reconsidering whether that's the best place for them or not, because we're seeing a lot of talent movement, I suppose. People are really thinking about whether they're doing what they should be doing right now. What's your message? What things should they consider if they are considering, if there's that little seed in their mind that maybe they could start their own business?
Oh my gosh, I think everyone should follow their calling. They need to at least give it a go. I'm not advocating for everyone to quit their corporate job today. Please don't do that. But I do think it is a good job to start reading up, to start doing research, to start looking at whether it's viable, whether your idea could work. And yeah, I do think that we should be following our calling. If you've got a dream or a drive to do something bigger with your life, you only get one life. You should go for it. You definitely should.
Yeah, great. And do you see a lot of people kind of do that while they're still in their main roles? You know, they've got a day job that's paying the bills, and they start to build their business on the side. Is that burnout, or is that practical? Can you manage?
I think we do see a lot of people who are doing that, who are, you know, they know where they want to get to, but they're not quite ready to take that leap financially yet to be out on their own. But they're putting their love into that, you know, that dream and idea that they have. But I think it's all about, it's about how we prioritize our time. I mean, I know myself, if I get up early, if I get up at 5, my family don't wake up till like 6 or 7. I've got a full hour to myself. Now, I can either waste that time scrolling social media, or I can spend it writing, because I'm writing my next book at the moment on the connection economy. So I can spend that time writing, or I can spend it doing yoga or something, you know, something good. So we all have 24 hours in a day, but it's how we use that time. And I'm not advocating for like working yourself into the ground, but like thinking about how you prioritize your time and using time wisely. I do think it's possible.
Yeah, great message. Wow, you've given us a lot in this session. It's fantastic. So just maybe to summarize some of it, firstly, I think there's a really key message for everybody to take away, which is a consistent message that I am putting out there, is this flexibility around the idea of how we create opportunities for people. And in your case, you're speaking about study opportunities for business, but we know there are so many systems that were designed and structured away the traditional way of working and a traditional type of worker or person. And I really liked how you talked about you can't just kind of tack things on an existing product or thing. It's about reimagining what that looks like for different people. Somebody once told me, painted a picture for me, that it's like some people think inclusion is there's a building and you open the doors and you say everybody's welcome. But in reality, inclusion is when you smash down the walls of that building completely and you rebuild something that does suit for everybody. And so I like the way you've given a clear demonstration of that with the Women in Business program. I liked it too, the message around create your own rules when it comes to business. And I think that's something that can be really hard when you've worked for a long time in a particular type of way and you go and start working in a business to go, hang on, those rules don't exist for me anymore and I can make this my own. And I think that's one of the great benefits of business ownership, like you mentioned. And now everybody can go and look at those finance opportunities that you suggested, and so maybe put some links to that too. But I think that's, I've heard those stats before about the access to finance, and I saw it when I was working in the commercialization space, and it's just so disappointing that that's still not shifting at all, really. And so to see that there's some creative options that are coming up that might start to tip that scale a bit, but at the meantime, we still need to really be putting pressure hard on those venture capital.
We do. I really believe that women hold the key to unlocking and solving so many of the problems that the world's facing, but they're not given access to get their ideas off the ground if they're not given that funding. And 2.7% of women, it's not enough. It's definitely something we need to work on and we need to address and change. get some more ideas going. Because women see things differently. Non-binary people see things differently. There's perspectives in diversity that we need to be bringing forward to help solve some of the biggest problems the world's facing in health, in education, in politics, in the environment. And because those voices aren't getting through, that's why we're having problems. That's why we're facing problems in the world that, have been created by capitalism and the traditional way of doing things.
Yeah, well said, definitely. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on today. How can people get in touch with you or learn more about your programs?
Well, I'm at LinkedIn as Peace Mitchell, and our website, the Women's Business School .com and osmopreneur.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome, fantastic, excellent. And just before we go, I will give another plug for my Diversity and Inclusion Network, which started off last week. We had the first session on Thursday, and it was incredible. Such an amazing group of people. We talked about a whole range of different topics straight off the bat, but also set ourselves some objectives as to what we'd like to get out of the group going forward. I did notice, being a diversity and inclusion professional, that the diversity could be much better in that group. So please definitely reaching out to people from every cultural background, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, LGBTIQA plus people, and people with disability. Closed captioning is available. So please jump on my website, breegorman.com.au, and head to the store, and you can sign up to that network. And I look forward to seeing you in the next month's session. Thanks again, Peace, for coming on today, and we might continue this conversation at some time in the future if you're willing. It'd be wonderful to do. And thanks everybody for listening in.
Thanks so much for having me, Bree. I've really loved it. Thanks everyone. Bye.